going on, everybody? Welcome in to the North End Podcast, episode 274. My name is Zach Graham, your host here in the North End, joined, as always, by my good buddy. He's on record as my best friend. His name is Ian Michaud, and we call him E. Sitting here, actually on Sunday, beautiful Austin, Texas, a few minutes after my Pittsburgh Steelers retake control of the AFC North there. So I'm feeling better than I have been the last couple of days. How you feeling, my friend?
I'm doing well, man. Excited to get into this. I know we got the goal of the year bracket coming down to the Final Four here, so that's super exciting. Want to talk about a couple players. Seems super exciting to talk about. Try to find some guys here that have been, declined. Get them in the rotation potentially. It is rumor season, so we're looking at all that stuff. But I'm doing well, man. Excited to talk about my favorite team.
Yeah, look, everything ramps up here this week because MLS Cup happened yesterday afternoon. I guess. Yeah. Congrats to Inter Miami. Look, man, like that puts, and we were talking to our buddy TJ during the game in a group chat, and he brought up, look, now that raises the stakes even further for that game that we play at with them opening their new stadium next year, because like that should be ring night, right? I don't know if they do ring night here in MLS, but it is their first home game after winning MLS Cup, so the atmosphere is going to be even more buoyant there in Miami in April.
Oh man, I was talking to our buddy Tom last night, and I was just like, they scheduled Austin to open the Inter Miami new stadium, and he was like, oh, so they just want to beat up on a team 12-0 in that matchup to christen the stadium there. But I did come up with the messy rule to you that I think is pretty solid here. You got to scoot up for every team once throughout the year. If you make the playoffs, you throw it into a random drawing, and that's the team you plays with in the playoffs. Because
in the little balls, you got to mingle them.
Yep, the messy lottery,
just like the World Cup draw.
Because we talked about, man, it's like everyone's contributing to have this guy over here.
Yeah,
we didn't get to see him in the fucking All-Star game. We got to see I show speed and majority of his body.
Trade one little guy for another.
So we got to find a way to get, because I want to fucking see the guy play. I want to see him in person. I need to see him in person. So I want to go to that game. And like you said there, I'd imagine it's going to be quite ceremonious. It takes a lot to get, any fan of a Miami sports team to show up, not only show up, but get them to show up on time is also a feat in that itself. So it was fun to watch that game, that cup matchup last night. And Vancouver living by the post and dying by the post. Absolutely insane. You get the multiple post shots in the LAFC matchup that help them survive that. And then you have what happens last night with the Sabi potential goal bouncing off the post twice and then hitting the post again on that rebound. So I thought it was good for MLS in general. It was an exciting game, and I was happy to tune into it. And for sure, it kind of felt, predetermined that Miami was going to walk away with that thing, and they're going to get better next year. You got Alba coming off the books now. You got Busquets coming off the books now. I'm assuming they're not going to bring Suarez back. So
I think he's going back to South America is the current rumor.
They're going to have a bunch of money to reload with, and they got those young guys now, man. So yeah, it's not going to be great going to play there, but I do want to go to that game. That would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, we'll work on it. And I'm with you, man. I thought it was a good final, good for the league. And I did see some Whitecaps fans kind of saying what you said there, where it was like, look, man, we're only here because of some good luck in our favor against LAFC with the triple post play and then having that one of their own. But man, how things could have swung if that just takes, an inch here, a centimeter there on any of those hits off the post. Yeah. I would feel pretty good if I'm a Whitecaps fan about sitting in our low block for 20 minutes and trying to see that one out. Tough break for the Whitecaps, man.
Dominated that game after the own goal. They were on the front foot, in control of that game, controlling the tempo, controlling the pace. Messi wasn't usually getting the touches that he usually sees there, and I just thought they played really, really well. But then once that second one comes, man, a guy like Kubas, man, who had been
what is he doing there, dude?
Absolutely insane to have that be the way that game opens up, and then you got to come out and you got to play a perfect game versus Miami to beat them. And if you have a turnover like that leads to a goal, man, it's just brutal.
Yeah. Well, I think that's more talk about other teams' games than we've had the entire season.
Yes.
So we'll refocus on Austin FC here. Let's get into the episode. Before we do, just want to remind you all listening or watching on the YouTube channel that you can support the show financially by downloading the audio versions of our episodes wherever you get your podcasts, and on Apple or Spotify, wherever you get those pods, you can toggle on auto downloads. That'll support us going forward. You don't have to think about it again. You can go the extra mile, rate and review the show wherever you get those pods. And if you are watching on the YouTube channel, hitting the subscribe button does help us grow the show. You can hit the notification bell to know when a live stream pops up or a new episode goes live. And of course, here on episode 274, hit the thumbs up, like the video, help us battle the YouTube algorithm overlords by atoning for your sins. Wash yourselves clean in the waters of the North End. I guess first I kind of hinted at there in the intro that coming off a little bit of an illness, not all the way back yet here. But that happened, I think, the night after we were out on the lake with the Fighting Leslies, their annual Christmas party there. So I want to shout out the Leslies once again, the homie Aggie. I mean, it's always a blast. Leveled up with the food this year, man. We got to see a bunch of our friends out there. We saw KP, we saw Josh, we saw Coach Nick, Adrian. Everybody who was out there, always a blast. So I just wanted to make sure we gave the Leslies their love, man, because that's always a fun time.
One of my favorite events every year. I love going to it. It's always nice being out. We still can't get a decent weather night though. I feel like every time we've gotten cold, kind of rainy, but I guess it adds to the atmosphere a little bit, but
it didn't help me. I don't think being in the rain and the cold. For 3 hours.
Food was fantastic, and as a vegetarian, I approached Aggie and I was like, hey, you got, anything that I can do other than rice and beans and stuff. He's like, yeah, we got a squash medley. And then I went back down there. It wasn't there. I was like, oh, this motherfucker lying to me about this. And then it magically appeared. That was fantastic. A really, really fun event, man. And just a lot of good people who love Austin FC. And, we fit in right with those folks.
Yeah, absolutely. So got to meet Richie's wife as well. Yep. So fantastic time. And look, man, obviously there are some good times at the queue to be had. And this is something that I wanted to bring up last week. It slipped my mind, was in the notes. The season ticket waitlist, is gone.
Yep.
Gone. And right now, man, you can still, there's not a ton left in the lower bowl. There's maybe 10 season tickets remaining in the North End. A larger number of them up on the east side, up in the second deck. But that was I don't know if I can't say I was shocked by that, but I was a little bit surprised that the wait list was just completely gone. And you can just walk up. I guess you could. If you go over to Q2, you could probably find somebody to sell you season tickets over there, but you can go on the website right now, man, and get into the season ticket mix. So just wanted to put that on anybody's radar who's been maybe waiting to potentially take a look at that. You can go to the website, click on there, and see what seats are available in the stadium. So just, get them while you can, man, because as soon as this team starts winning again, you would think that wait list is going to come back. Maybe certainly not to the extent it was, 21, 22, but you can get in right now if you want to.
I think it's awesome, because I knew people that had been on the list for 3-4 years, waiting and trying to get in. And now that it's open and everyone has the opportunity to get in on this and still, like you said, once the team starts winning again, feeling better about this roster, as we are inclined to do here in the North End, it's still one of the funnest things to do in Austin, in my opinion. It's a great time. Like we always mention, we would love to be able to mix the vibes with the wins more often, but the vibes are the most consistent thing when you go to Q2. So if anyone's looking to get in, get in.
Yeah, I know our buddy Mace, now 123 season ticket holder, Mason Danny. So, and I know some of our friends in the live stream chat a couple weeks ago for the schedule release were saying they're in the North End or joining 123 this season. So, and look, man, when you got the season tickets, at least for the first couple rounds, you usually get free tickets to the first round or two of the U.S. Open Cup, and Austin FC will compete in the 2026 U.S. Open Cup. This was some of the news that came out this week, and something that I wasn't necessarily expecting to 100% happen, because we saw heard club president Andy Loughnane a couple weeks ago when he gave his press conference about the league's schedule change. He mentioned that he expected us to compete in Leagues Cup, which looking at the schedule, you pointed out the the kind of break there where you could potentially squeeze 3 freaking group stage matches in like a 9-day span, 10-day span there. But to also have Open Cup here, I don't know, man. We get the, month and a half break for the World Cup, but we saw how much we struggled trying to deal with multiple competitions down the stretch run of the season.
Yep.
Adding an additional one here in 2026, I don't feel great about. I would, of course, rather play in the Open Cup than Leagues Cup. I think that's been established. As much as you and I enjoy watching Leagues Cup, like I would personally rather our team, if we could only choose one, be an Open Cup. So I think the way that this format is this season, and we know U.S. soccer mostly, I think, but at MLS is doing, has been kind of shifting the format around for this. Austin FC will enter in the round of 32 once again, and that match will be played on either April 14th or 15th of this coming season. And I believe that I saw the non-Leagues Cup teams will host those round of 32 matches. So I think this first game will be on the road. The other 15 MLS teams that qualified with us, 9 of them qualified from missing the playoffs. That's Red Bulls, the Quakes, the Rapids, Houston, New England, St. Louis, SKC, Atlanta, and DC. And I think Galaxy are excluded because they're in Champions League. And, of course, the Canadian teams not in U.S. Open Cup. Then the other 7 qualified from the Shield spots that did not make CONCACAF Champions Cup. That's Charlotte, Minnesota, NYC, Orlando, Columbus, Chicago, and us. So that's how we are in here, I think, as the last spot in to the Open Cup. So the field of professional teams overall has been reduced from 64 to 48 this season, with slots for each professional division allocated as evenly as possible. So again, this is not something we're going to pay too much attention to until we get into that April range, right? When we figure out who our first opponent is and that game's coming up on the schedule. But, here we go. We're back into 3 competitions with MLS, Leagues Cup, and Open Cup. Again, Leagues Cup not officially confirmed, but we're assuming that the club president has a pretty good bead on that. What was your reaction to Austin being back into the competition that, hosted the final last year, man? And looking at that field of MLS teams, it's not crazy to think that we could do it again.
No, it's not crazy to think you could do it again. I was, when you were reeling those off, thinking to myself, those are still some quality clubs. You know what I mean? But we beat some quality clubs in this competition last year. I love the history of this tournament and this cup, the tradition that it has. And I enjoy being a part of it. I do prefer Leagues Cup because I love watching the Liga MX teams. I love seeing their players. I love the intensity that they play with. Just a bit more flair to their game. I feel like usually I feel like those games have been really fun to watch. Whether it be an Austin matchup or I'm just watching casually when some of these Liga MX teams are matched up with some other MLS clubs and everything like that. And like you said, 3 competitions with the regular season. It's a lot to juggle. And for me, having been through this now with seeing how the team has struggled, we talked about, our positioning in the table and how that kind of tailed off because you threw in the towel for the RSL game. And then you shit the bed in the St. Louis game with the championship hangover, and those potential 6 points right there to help buoy your positioning on the table. So again, it comes back down to depth and Roto filling out this roster with more high quality players and younger players that I think can contribute at the first team level is of the utmost importance here. So I'm excited for it for sure. I bet the guys are as well. And, if you want some redemption, here it is to go ahead and get this done. I imagine a lot of those guys still have a sour taste in their mouth from how that game played out and the fact that they weren't able to get the job done. So you get a shot at it again, man. And I'll be there. I'm excited for it. It's a good tournament.
I mean, I think it's really silly to me that Nashville is not in. You gotta, and I know it was the same last year, right? It was LAFC, I believe, the defending champs, and because they were in Leagues Cup and CONCACAF, they didn't get back in to defend their title, and I don't like that from a competition standpoint.
I feel that for sure.
So the first live draw will be held on Tuesday, April 2nd, and that's when Austin FC will learn their round of 32 opponent. I'm gonna bet if it's not like a USL team or something like that we'd go to Houston or something, Houston, Sporting, whatever.
Yep.
So let's move on here. And this is a little serious. I don't want to, not a little serious. This is legitimately serious from like a real world perspective, but now potentially affecting Austin FC. And again, you or I, not experts in the political realm, but I saw these posts. They were going around in a couple chats, a couple Slacks this week. And this is a report that the official USCIS guidance on the immigration and naturalization pause for people from the 19 travel ban countries here from the Trump administration, including Cuba and Venezuela. So another tweet, or I think this is a skeet, right, on Blue Sky. But another post in this thread read that in addition, 500,000 people from those 19 countries who got green cards during the Biden administration, plus tens of thousands who got asylum or refugee status, as well as many others who received other benefits, now have to worry about potentially being called back in for a, quote, re-review, whatever that means. And I bring that up and put emphasis on Venezuela because my understanding is Danny Pereira and potentially his family members are here on green cards from Venezuela, and we know that he was here on an asylum claim prior to that.
Yep.
Put my fucking opinions aside. I think you guys can fucking read into it. But this seems like something that we should have at least a minor concern about it right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, not even just from the roster standpoint, but for the well-being of Danny and his family, and how this is going to affect him at a personal level, and having to worry about this, as it says right there, to potentially worry about being called back in. That's concerning, man. And like, it would suck, obviously, if something happens with Danny and his family, but his well-being and safety, obviously, being in this country is what I'm most concerned about right now. But losing one of our best players potentially because of this, it would be a disaster. And like we talked about, how MLS has now aligned themselves with the major transfer windows across the world. Like, we were expecting an influx of players from all over the world to come to this league to raise the level of competition and talent in this league. And I like you said, I'm no expert in asylum, refugee status, what have you, but it doesn't seem like it's going to make things an easier process to get players over here.
Yeah, man. So again, I don't want to spend a ton of time on that, but did want to bring it to the attention of the North End faithful, just so we're not completely blindsided by this if something unfortunate does come of that news. I know we were joking the other night. Good thing you didn't fall off the boat, so Pete Hegseth didn't double tap you in Town Lake. Let's go ahead and move on here, E. Some more Austin FC news came out this week, and this time on the coaching side. Fabio Hernandez joins Austin FC as the club's new first-team goalkeeping coach. So Coach Hernandez most recently was the goalkeeper coach at Huntsville City, and I believe that is Nashville's Next Pro affiliate there in the Eastern Conference. One of those teams, you don't see an Eastern Conference team in Next Pro until you get to a potential final. So we're not very familiar with Huntsville City at all, but Coach Hernandez spent the last 2 seasons there with Huntsville, helping the team reach the Eastern Conference semifinals this season. He was also, I believe, after they made a first-team coaching change at Nashville last season, he was elevated to interim goalkeeper coach for Nashville SC at the end of the 2024 season. And prior to being with Huntsville and Nashville, Coach Hernandez was the director of goalkeeping and assistant coach at Chattanooga Red Wolves SC, which is in USL League One. Coach Hernandez, fluent in English and Spanish, and holds a UEFA C coaching license. So, look, man, this is a coach who is, I think, used to working with young keepers who are still in their developing stages, obviously. That is kind of the job of every coach at the next pro level. But, with Damian coming back into the mix here and now getting Coach Hernandez really from a level that I didn't expect, man. I didn't expect us to go pluck our next goalkeeper coach from the third division here. So I think that speaks highly of how the club, how Rodo's team, how Nico's staff, sees Coach Hernandez here. So it'll be interesting to see how that develops, right, with the goalkeeping room that we have here now. And, are all 3 of those guys here when the season starts? We'll see. I'm not so sure what many goalkeeper coaches can teach Brad Stuver at this point of his career. But welcome to Coach Hernandez either way.
Yes, a warm welcome to Coach Hernandez for sure. And again, that it'd be impossible to keep up with third division, goalkeeping coaches. So I don't have a whole ton of insight here, but I did just pull up, you brought up the USL there, so I wanted to take a quick peek. Your Pittsburgh Riverhounds champions.
They did, and I believe that's a grill master title. I think he's still there.
Oh shit.
But I'm not 100% certain on that, but I did see the Riverhounds. And they got a new stadium deal. They're going to renovate that stadium down there on the rivers, which makes me want to go even more. So
he's still on the team too.
Yeah, there you go. So congrats to the Grill Master.
Indeed, congrats, Grill Master.
Is EJ still there, or did he move on? I think he might have moved to Lexington or something.
He is not there, no.
Okay, well, Grill Master, champion again.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess not again. He was gone right before we won the 23, or was that 24? I don't remember when he left.
Oh yeah, we might have. Yeah, we might have sold.
He might have dipped out before then.
Yeah.
Sorry, don't remember our Jackson Vaulty timelines here in late 2025. Let's move back here to the first team, E, and talk about, look, we mentioned in the intro, the offseason starts now. Wednesday is not only the college showcase, so that is the combine for fans of more American leagues here. And again, the MLS Super Draft, especially with us, I believe, having the 16th pick, not a overly important offseason mechanism here, but you can find some gems. And we have also seen Roto trade our first round picks for GAM for international slots in the past. I don't know how much you can get from the 16th selection. Obviously, we've been higher in the draft order the last couple years. The most important thing happening this Wednesday, dude, noon Central. Free agency opens. You could get a John Bell signing in 3 days.
Yeah. And I mean, we talked about that rumor and looking at the profile of John Bell and how he'd fit into this team and potentially, seeing a more expansive 5-back than we have in the past. I'm all for that. And it is an exciting time, as I mentioned at the top there, to be looking at some players that could potentially bring in. There's a lot of work to be done with this roster. And, we talked about it, I think, when we were on the Leslie boat there. It was just like, you have this core, and if you can go out and spend some money on the TAM and get an attacking midfielder, somebody to distribute this ball. I think our buddy Tex Rex was talking about it in the YouTube comments. It's the only thing he wants for Christmas. And I'm right there with you, man. Like, let's spend some money and get another player here who's of a high quality, because you have your core of guys that I think you feel good about. Obviously, got to wait and see what BV looks like coming back post-injury, acclimating him back into the team, albeit I think it would be a slow process for that for sure. But you can get some players in here that make an impact on this team, man. So I'm excited for this offseason. It's always a fun time to take a look at, what we could be potentially bringing in.
Yeah, and keep in mind, we talked about last week with the option decisions, the new contract signed by Ilie Sanchez, and going back to the timeline of Diego Rubio's last extension and when we learned he was on the supplemental roster. Ilie could still be there, so that could be a senior slot that is open that we don't know about currently. We have the 2 buyouts as well. We've talked plenty about the 2 names that stick out that we would use them on. And I think especially Obrian with the international slot that he's taking up. Like, that is the priority, because Robert Taylor, if you're going to buy out one, it's got to be the guy that opens up the international slot, especially looking to use this TAM this offseason. And you also have to keep in mind, as we'll get into some potential free agent targets here, you got to keep in mind that TAM guys, you got to think about potential transfer fees, and that's going to make it's a very, very tough job. I still think we should hold the front office's feet to the fire about getting some, TAM level contributors here that are game changers, because that you signed up for a tough job, but also not just saying or not just operating as a fan like, oh, this is the easiest thing in the world. It's not, to balance all the MLS rules and us still being incongruent with the European and the global soccer calendar, right? It is tougher for us to acquire high level players in the middle of the other leagues' seasons here. And then we have those supplemental slots, right? Where we are thinking you could potentially add John Bell there with the GAM buy down to a supplemental slot. And look, free agency isn't the only mechanism, that we're looking forward to this week. We will talk about some of those potential free agent targets here in a moment, but we also have both the re-entry stage 1 and end of year waivers happening this Thursday. So re-entry stage 1 will take place at noon Central on Thursday. That is conducted in reverse order of the finish. So I think we are 16th. Again, just like the Super Draft, I believe we're 16th in the reentry process, and eligible players for reentry. Right, you got to remember that free agents are players who are out of contract or option declined, who are at least 24 years old and have completed a minimum, as of this year, a minimum of 4 years of service. That's down from 5. That's a change this offseason. I also wanted to note 2 other changes that I had in our notes in the roster sheets at thenorthendpodcast.com. This is just me copying these over from the CBA. But in this offseason now, players making the max cap hit or less can sign with another club with an initial salary of either $25,000 above the max cap hit or 20% above the player's prior salary, whichever is greater. And players making between the max cap hit and max TAM amount can earn 20% above their prior salary, up to $500,000 above the max cap hit, and 15% of such salary from $500K above max salary, up to the max TAM amount. So I know I saw your brain click off when I was reading that. Totally understandable. That's something that if that comes up, we'll have to revisit. But I did want to mention that just because it's something that I haven't seen for a couple years, because we updated that sheet so long ago. But that's what drove me to look at those notes, is that beginning this offseason, free agency drops to 4 years of service instead of 5. Still ridiculous, but a little less so.
Yeah, he's still ridiculous, but a little less. But every time I see this roster sheet, man, I'm just like, this is what we got to do. This is what I would do. And this is, my brain just starts churning with that. But that is good information to have. And as you said, I think it is totally fair to be holding this front office to a higher standard to get some players in here that fit the TAM profile of guys who are game changers. And that's what I want to see, man. We got some wiggle room. Also, I was when you were going through that, I was curious. Is hot air impacted by the potential asylum refugee thing? Is Colombia on there?
That's a good question, but he didn't have a green card.
Oh,
and I don't think he's here on asylum or anything like that.
The international spot.
It's just a work visa, right? So, but that's a good question, man. Like, I didn't look at the full list of those 19 countries either. So again, that's not what we want to be fucking doing here, but we have to. That's a good shout by you. So I mentioned at least 24 years old, 4 years of service to be eligible for free agency. The players who have had their options declined or are just out of contract, who are 22 years old or older, with at least 1 year of MLS service and not eligible for free agency, go into the re-entry process. So these are players we didn't go through the other 29 option decision releases and see which one of these players were declined or out of contract that weren't on the PA's free agent list, right? But these guys, if you select anybody in the re-entry process, which is how we got Hot Air Obrian in the first place, that means we have to exercise that option that was declined or make a bona fide offer for guys who are out of contract. And a bona fide offer is a $15,000 increase or a 10% increase in salary over their prior year's salary. And we cannot, of course, select our own draft eligible players. None of those guys we would be looking to pick up anyways. But that and end of year waivers coming up. So it's not just free agency. You could see, we've seen Roto utilize that process in the past. And those guys would be more of a surprise unless we took the 2 hour plus that it would take to go through and figure out which one of these guys who were declined are actually eligible for reentry. So I've got some free agents, but anything else for you on reentry, end of year waivers, outside of we're on a green smoke alert. I guess it's that time of year.
Definitely on green smoke alert. And then, as much shit as we've given Hot Air, man, we've got him out of the redraft, or the reentry, and then he led the team in scoring. So like, not that that's a great accomplishment, but there is some potential for some spice in those processes. And there's a bunch of mechanisms to go ahead and fill out this roster.
Rumors, whispers, made up trades, consequences we never weighed. Logic's thin, the mic is hot. Let's pretend this means a lot. Taking shots from way downtown, hoping no one writes it down. Hot takes flying without hesitation. It's time for some reckless speculation.
Look, just protecting ourselves here, as we go through a number of players that are eligible for free agency here, and potentially could fill some of those slots that we are looking to fill here positionally on the roster. I will say, we mentioned John Bell. Nothing new on that since the initial reports from Nico Moreno, and like, you can't say that when we hear something domestically that it's always going to happen, because Tom Bogert got the Fafa Pico rumor wrong last year. I think that had more to do with Fafa changing his mind. It worked out for the guy. He just won a title yesterday. But nothing new on John Bell. I'm tentatively expecting that signing to happen, unless another team comes out with a higher offer. But the fact that we were in negotiations with Bell's camp, again, I'm really hoping that we can kind of fill that depth center back slot with a guy like John Bell. Of course, my feelings have not changed from last episode. So some of these guys that I'm looking at on the free agent list that did have their options declined. Maybe going to jump around a little bit here, but stick with me. The first name I want to bring up is Bryce Duke. And Bryce Duke is, I believe, a former LAFC, potentially an academy guy with LAFC, I think born in Arizona. Also was a member of those Miami teams pre-Messi. He was getting a lot more minutes when they were terrible, and has spent the last couple years with Montreal. His option was not picked up by Montreal, and he was on a senior slot and $431K last year. I don't think, unless Bryce Duke, unless he gets a similar offer to that from another team, or wants to drop down a division and go USL, I think it's potential, again, for giving a guy a 226K type of offer, the GAM buy down a la Diego Rubio, and we hope Ilie Sanchez. Because, look, Bryce Duke has 5+ years of MLS service. Again, it's down to 4 this year, and he's domestic. And, again, is not a productive, has not been, off the charts. Again, this is why the guy was declined by one of the worst teams in the league. But if you could get a guy who's still 24 years old, like Bryce Duke, not taking up an international slot, if you can get him in a supplemental roster slot, I would take that. So that's, again, there's not a lot of options out there in free agency that make sense for the slots we have open. But again, if there's a lot of conditions with these guys, if-thens, but, I would take that on a supplemental.
Again, I've been talking about the depth of this roster and how we're going to need that to compete with these 3 competitions coming up next season. Obviously, Leagues Cup, like we hinted at, not official yet, but you need guys who can contribute. And yes, nothing that he did last year or for the entirety of his career is really going to jump off the page at you or anything like that. But we need contributors out there. So I'm fine with that one. And again, I'm with you where are you fitting in? How much we paying you? Are you on the supplemental? And that's the key for me there.
Right, I don't think I mentioned Bryce Duke, more of a central midfielder, an attacking midfielder there, right? And we need depth in those spots. So if you've got a guy, go ahead.
I mean, we were talking about with the loss of Rubio. This is not a 1-for-1, but it is still something where if he's in a supplemental, this is a guy you can get solid run out of. And obviously playing on this god-awful Montreal team last year isn't going to buoy your numbers absolutely insane, because they weren't playing well except when they beat the shit out of us. But again, this is a guy that can contribute. You get him on the supplemental roster, I think that's a good move.
Next, Lassi Lappalainen, another guy who has spent some time with Montreal, but was with the Columbus Crew this past year. Lappalainen, left wing back, can also play in the midfield, more shaded to that left side. And we've got 2 guys that I feel more than comfortable with playing that left wing back. If we're playing we've got the 3 back there in Kolmanic and Biru, of course, but Lappalainen was on $368K last year. The big hurdle to this potential So again, drink every time we say I'd take him on a supplemental here, I guess. But 368K is close enough to that 226 where I thought we could include him. But the biggest hurdle is that Lapalainen was taking up an international slot last year, 27 years old. Not a high likelihood, but again, one of the few names out there that would fit that. Hey man, like you take a little discount, you can stick around the MLS here with Austin and get you on that supplemental slot. Neither Duke nor Lapalainen would I want to occupy a senior slot.
Yeah, for sure. And like this has a lot of implications in regard to, are we finding a consistent spot for Owen Wolff positionally? Is going to be the guy who plays that left wing, then floats into the middle? Is he going to be that guy that we had in the central midfield at points in time this season? We know we've played him at right wing back. We played him at right wing. We've played him, the kid, fucking almost everywhere at this point. Like, I want to find some more stability for what he's being asked to do. And like, whatever we asked him to do last year, he excelled at, which is well and good. But I would love some more consistency, a more defined role with where he's going to line up consistently with this lineup, and how you're going to fill the roster out around that. Like we talked about, everyone's top target right now is an attacking midfielder, a distributing midfielder, a 10 that we can really rely on and count on. And what does that do for Owen Wolff? Does that push him out left wing? Because we talked about left wing being a depth spot, a positional spot that we need some more depth at. We want to get another contributor in there. So a lot of this stuff has implication for Owen, in my opinion. And then Lapalainen, I don't really know a whole ton about him. But again, it's the conditional things about not taking up the international, not being on the senior roster.
How about we run this back here in the offseason, E? What about Fafa Pico? Right? Straight up left wing. Okay. Yeah. And of course, Miami have not announced their option decisions as of yet. I do think that comes maybe even tonight. I think it's the day after they finish their season. And of course, like he didn't play a ton for them. And especially down the stretch, I want to say it was like 40 minutes since like mid-August in MLS play for Fafa. But he was on 642K with them. So very, almost identical to like the Robert Taylor profile that they just traded us last year. And Fafa will turn 35 2 days after the season opener. But like if they decline him and he wants to continue playing and not just go out on the high of winning MLS Cup, he has a green card. Could he come on a supplemental? Clearly there was talks between Roto and Fafa's camp last. Tommy Scoops is not reporting that if there's not something there. So there's already a relationship. If it hasn't soured over him spurning us for the eventual champions, like again, take a drink. I would absolutely take Fafa on a supplemental if he wanted to take that discount to come play, another 800 to 1,000 minutes here as left wing depth in Austin.
Yeah, I don't see how there couldn't be some sort of strain on the potential relationship between Fafa's camp and Roto and our staff. Like, I really don't, because it seemed like a done deal. We got it from the premier source for MLS information and Tom Bogert. Shout out Tommy Scoops, man. But he's 34. It's going to be 35. We know he's a guy who relies on his speed. I don't think I would welcome him, to be honest with you. That would not be someone I would be targeting.
That's fair. Well, maybe I can, tantalize you a little bit with these last three guys, E. And this is somebody that I would take, I think, on a senior slot, depending on what we can do maneuvering some of those other senior slots, right? If Ilya's still on a senior and we're not going to use a buyout, then I don't think we can get this guy. But Willie Agata is out of contract for RSL. He was on a little north of $500,000 last season. If Ilya's taking Rubio's spot on the supplemental, getting Willie for $400K, maybe a little bit less, that feels pretty good as a backup center forward to me. Maybe that allows you to push CJ out to the left sometimes and you kind of bolster the left wing depth chart from within. Right? He was Willie Agata, that is, incredibly explosive forward for about 2.5 seasons there with Sporting KC. And he's still just turned 26. So like Willie Agata is by no means over the hill. He's just kind of entering his stereotypical athletic prime here, E. And again, just under 1,200 minutes for RSL last season. But this is a guy, 10 goals for Sporting in the 2024 season in 20 starts. 8 goals for Sporting in 10 starts back in 2022. To have him behind BV and Mirtu Azuni, I would absolutely take. I think, again, very thin, very low probability.
Mm-hmm.
But if he's not catching on up there at RSL, like, again, he's probably not signing for more somewhere else. So I would have my eye on Agata.
I would not hate that. He's not a guy who like pops off the page pops off the screen when you watch him play, but I do think he's a solid contributor and a guy who wants to score goals. As you mentioned with RSL kind of revamping that front line, definitely fell out of favor a little bit there. I'm a bit more warm on Agata. But did you see Phil's article on Kai Kamara?
Kai Kamara, yeah. I mean, I would take him on a supplemental.
Yeah, I just want him to collect goals like fucking Infinity Stones, man. What's that?
What'd you say?
I just want him to, yeah, just collect goals for every team. Get him on every club, man. And again, I think that might, the Agata kind of backup center forward, and what we're looking at with, potential decisions for CJ and how that impacts him. How confident are you that he's going to continue his ascension? I feel pretty good about it for sure. But I know a lot of people in the fan base would not want to be seeing a backup center forward come in here and take minutes from CJ. Sure. And, I can't necessarily blame you for that. But with the BV injury, we are going to need some more depth up there. And that has been a spot we've consistently struggled with as a franchise, to find guys that you can actually count on up there. And then it comes back to, full circle with the Mirtu thing. Is that where we're trying to get him up there? Like, is he playing the center forward striker position for us and everything like that? So, I don't mind the Agata one for sure. I'm a fan of Willie.
Well, and again, it's like we got to keep in mind, it's not going to be the last time I'm going to say this offseason. You got to keep in mind how much shit is going to happen between now and training camp, between training camp and the opener, right? Like this time last year, we had no inkling that Sebastian Driussi was going to be gone in a month and then be sold for $10 million on top of that, right? Yeah. So like, DP slots could change. Anything can change here. Let me throw out two potential TAM level guys to you. Let's go to Minnesota. Robin Lod. Now, Robin Lod was declined by the Loons, but is still in negotiations with Minnesota on a potential new contract, right? So Robin Lod was on $1.6 million last year, essentially a max TAM level guy, but with no transfer fee and Lod has a green card, that profiles as somebody to me that we should at least be sniffing around, because you got to keep in mind when you pay that transfer fee for a TAM player, that gets tacked on to their salary budget charge. So that limits, if you're paying a big transfer fee for a TAM guy, that limits how much their salary can actually be here. So being able to get a TAM guy from within the league does seem like a positive move if we're able to work one out. And Robin Lod is a season removed from 20 goal contributions in MLS play back in 2024. So Lod definitely, if we were able to snap him up from Minnesota, we'll be 33 in April. So again, 1+1, maybe a 2+1, but still playing for Finland. We, if you buy out Robert Taylor, we need our Finnish quotient here on the Austin FC roster. He would certainly provide that. So Robin Lod is the first of two potential attacking midfielders that we could get on TAM here in the offseason.
Definitely a fan of Lod, man. Every time we've played Minnesota, I've been impressed with him. 11 goal contributions this season. He's a good player. A little older for sure, but he's also versatile in where you can line him up. You can put him a lot of different places, and I think that's a bonus for us. I am a fan of his game, so that would be something that I think sniffing around is the right way to approach that for sure.
And you may notice a couple of these guys, Willie Agata, right, scored right in our faces this year. Robin Lod destroyed us in the opener back in 2024, so maybe playing a little factor here in me pulling these names out of the list. But the last one, is Eric Tommy. Eric Tommy is out of contract with Sporting KC. He was on $1.6 million, nearly identical to Robin Lod last season. So, of course, wouldn't have to pay a transfer fee for a guy who was out of contract. Eric Tommy also has a green card. So you could potentially give Eric Tommy coming into, he will be 32 next August. You could potentially get him on a little bit of a discount from his previous contract, still keep him up in that TAM range. And again, this is a guy who has had a lengthy Bundesliga career before spending the last 4 seasons with Sporting. double-digit goal contributions, I believe, in all of his 3 full seasons, I believe, with Sporting KC, came over in the summer window of 2022. Eric Tommy might be the most realistic guy of this list, especially between he and Robin Lod, right? You would think Minnesota, saying publicly that they're still in negotiations with Lod, that they would like to get something done there. Eric Tommy, I think, is somebody we should definitely be making contact with.
And probably the player on this list that excites me the most. I think that he is a high quality player. Again, another guy who's versatile. He can move him around a little bit. He's a good distributor as well. Somebody with a strong crossing game for sure. And playing for that Sporting Kansas City team, it's tough. I was dealing with some injuries this year, right? He was banged up a little bit. So he would be somebody that I would be looking at as a potential free agent signing coming in.
Anything else for you on this? Again, you got to be on. Look, if you like the live streams that pop up every now and then, make sure you hit the notification bell here on YouTube, because it's live stream time, baby.
Yep.
Like, this month is it.
Yeah, we're on high alert here in the North End offices, so it will be coming through.
So again, free agency noon on Wednesday, reentry stage 1 noon on Thursday, end of year waivers 4 p.m. Central on Thursday. Let's check in with the academy. It's been a busy week for the academy, and we'll start with goalkeeper Nico Aristizabal. Gets another call up, this time to the U19s of the Puerto Rican national team. And so Nico represented the U19s this weekend at the UNCAF FIFA Forward Showcase, which is just a showcase of U19 teams from various Central American countries there. So again, you love to see Nico continue to get the call-ups. And we know he's a few months removed from being active on the bench for Puerto Rico, I believe against Messi in Argentina, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to remember, how he played against, or didn't play against, but was lined up with Messi out there and everything, and that came to mind. So congrats there for Nico.
So then the other academy, or I should say the academy teams, rather, it is MLS Next Fest this week and through the coming week. So the U18s, who I believe we have a number of teams playing up in this tournament. Our U18s are playing in the U19 division, and I believe they are done with their group stage here, They first drew FC Cincinnati 2-2, but then a 4-2 victory over Sporting KC yesterday, on top of a 4-1 win over Montreal today. I'm unsure if they will advance, but 2 wins and a draw, they're definitely putting themselves in a strong spot to do so. The U16s, I believe, are playing up in the U17 division. They beat Minnesota 3-2 on Saturday. They will take on Chicago Fire on Monday and NYCFC on Tuesday. So a good start for the U16s with the 3-2 victory. And then U15s, I think the U15s are playing up in the U16 division. They take on St. Louis Wednesday, Philadelphia Union on Thursday, FC Cincinnati on Saturday. So, 3 wins and a draw so far in our 4 games at Next Fest. Things are looking up for the academy boys.
Yeah, that's awesome. And best of luck moving forward with those other matchups for these guys. Keep it rolling.
U12s and U13s did host the Vivero Cup this weekend. That was against the other local academies. El Arbolito is next weekend, so we'll keep our eye out for results from both of those local tournaments, and we will close out today's episode with the updated goal of the year bracket. And this is boring to me, dude. All 4 1 seeds for the first time in our goal of the year bracket history. All 4 1 seeds have advanced to the Final Four. So let's zoom in here on the home region. It was 1-seeded Brandon Vasquez, his free kick goal against Atlanta United. This was the closest matchup in the quarterfinal round. 51.7% of the vote, narrowly edging out Owen Wolf's 51st minute equalizer at home against FC Dallas. That was the 7 seed, the lone kind of upset-minded seed left in the tournament, bowing out, almost getting it done, but BV's 1 seed advances.
That was a beautiful strike by BV. I think I favor the Wolf goal there.
And on the away region, we had Owen Wolf's 1 seed taking down CJ Fodre's 82nd minute goal, CJ's first career MLS goal. That was 58.6% to 41.4%. So Owen Wolf, and again, both of those goals were great. I did personally favor the Owen goal in this matchup, just because of the skill to bring it. I think we've said it every time we've brought up the bracket here, but god damn, was that a great goal.
Beautiful, beautiful goal. Rightfully advancing to the Final Four, in my opinion.
And then in the Verde region here, it is another Brandon Vasquez goal. So we have Vasquez on Vasquez crime in the Final Four here, taking down Osman Bukhari's 12th minute goal against San Jose Earthquakes, assisted by Owen Wolf in that one, but it was BV's opening goal against Houston in the Open Cup that advances out of the Verde region.
This was the kind of chip ball over the top.
Fake bike, yeah.
Another beautiful, beautiful display of skill here. So I support this as well.
Watching these goals for like 3 weeks now is like, I cannot wait to get Brandon Vasquez back on the field. He's posting more clips of him, more pictures of him, in training, kind of ramping up his physicality. We're getting close, man. I mean, April is not that far away.
Yeah, we'll take it, brother.
And then the most dominant there in the quarterfinals is CJ Fodre's 120th minute winner to send Austin FC to the Open Cup final. And I will, now that the voting is over, I did vote for the Azuni goal right here.
Oh.
I just thought it was a better goal overall.
Yep.
Obviously, if you're voting on the vibes, maybe I should have done that in the vibes region. If you're voting on the vibes, I get it. I did vote. I was one of the people that voted in that 31% for the Azuni winner, which was assisted by CJ.
I was gonna say this is the vibes region. I think this is the right call.
Yeah. So you can go to the northendpodcast.com right now to cast your votes here in the Final Four, all 4 1 seeds. So this voting will be open until next Saturday night. You come back next week on our next episode and see who the final matchup is. Anything else for you on the goal of the year or overall before we shut it down?
Nothing on the goal of the year. Excited to see how it concludes for sure. Overall, looking forward to sweeping you in the season series of 53 for the second time in history. It is a done deal.
Hey, look, man, it's a tank year. You made the final for a decade straight. Sometimes we got to tank it. All right. I'm holding on. Look, Wednesday, Wembanyama full practice today. Steph Castle full practice. We're coming for that NBA Cup.
Come on.
All right, everybody. We appreciate you tuning in, sticking with us here on episode 274 of the North End Podcast. We will be back next Sunday, recapping a busy offseason week for Austin FC and around MLS. Keep your eyes out for a potential live stream this week because we could have new players in about 72 hours. So enjoy your week, everybody. We will do the same, and we'll see you back here next Sunday for another episode. Until then, he's E, and I'm Zach. Vamos Austin FC, everybody. Goodbye.